So today's webinar is presented by Kathleen Thurman, who is the Chief Administrative Officer for Project Solutions Incorporated. Project Solutions is an economically disadvantaged women-owned small business with government contracting experience, including SBA's 8A program and Joint Ventures program. Project Solutions provides architectural, engineering, and construction services, as well as facility management and business consulting. And Kathleen has over 30 years experience in leadership, business growth, contract compliance and management, and employee training and engagement. Her experience spans several industries, including higher ed, healthcare, insurance and securities, and engineering and construction. Kathleen, thank you for speaking today. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. It's very nice out today here, so I hope you are enjoying some nice weather and looking forward to a great weekend. And don't forget about the time change. So I really appreciate you registering and participating in today's training. And I hope that everybody has a little bit different perspective when they leave today's training to help them increase their proposal opportunities that they're winning. And so today I tend to take the approach of looking at all of the proposals that we submit from an evaluator's perspective. That should help you with some tips or suggestions in increasing your success rate as well. So many of you already have proposal writing experience and know the basic foundation of writing a proposal, whether it's for a grant or for a contract to the government. And so today I'm only going to touch on some of the basic terminology as I go through, and my focus truly is starting at the end and working backwards. And when I say the end, I'm really talking about what the evaluator's perspective is and working our way to the point of preparing your proposal. As Daniel said, today, if you have questions, please jot them down in the chat box, and at the end, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have. And then also, my email address is available through Daniel, and we're also happy to help. So again, thank you for attending today. The name of today's presentation is, do you have a winning proposal? An evaluator's perspective. And as I said, we're going to work from the back towards the front. Again, welcome and happy Friday. So a little bit about Project Solutions. Thank you, Daniel, for giving an overview of the company. So Project Solutions started in 2000, and it is a 100% woman-owned business. She is a local engineer in the Rapid City area. Sandy Burns is the company is a certified SBA 8A program in 2005, and we graduated in February of 2014. Project Solutions is registered as an EDWOSB, and we currently have 53 employees throughout the US and Italy. The work that we do at Project Solutions is a little bit unique. We specialize in working with federal agencies as an owner's representative. And so that means that we are bidding on contracts that we go in and we are the eyes and the ears for the government agency on the project. So we don't have authority to direct contractors or subs, but we are there documenting, inspecting, and ensuring that everything is being done as outlined in the scope of work. So because of the type of work we do, we are bidding on contracts, opportunities every single week. I would say that right now we average, this time of year, we're averaging 3 to 5 proposals that we are submitting weekly. Of course, as everybody knows, that later on, there will be a little bit of a lull during the Christmas holidays, maybe into mid-January, and things will pick up very quickly. So the areas that we bid on primarily involve construction, engineering, commissioning, and inspections. In addition to that work, we also do work at the state and local level, as well as several tribal agencies by doing some business consulting. And we also have 3 wastewater treatment facilities. So we do operation and maintenance of 3 government wastewater treatment facilities. On average, we submit about 50 proposals per year. And we did an analysis in 2017, we were winning approximately 28% of those proposals. In 2019, we have now climbed to 48%. And part of that is, again, what we're going to share with you today is taking a look at not what we can do for the company or for the contractors, but what they need from us to be able to fill their scope of work. And Daniel gave you already a brief overview of myself. As he said, I'm the CAO at Project Solutions. I have, over the past 30 years, been very involved in writing and winning many multi-million-dollar grants and projects for both nonprofits and for-profit agencies. In that experience, it has also included being an evaluator. So when I talk about the steps that I'm presenting today, please note this is only one perspective, and it's there's a lot of different ways that evaluators will do the process or perform the work, but it is all very structured within that agency. And a lot of what I'm presenting is an overview of methods that are used throughout multiple agencies across all federal government as well as state governments. Project Solutions on the next map, those dots represent where we currently have national projects. So we are, again, national and international. Today's agenda, again, is going to provide an overview of these 5 different areas. We also do an in-person presentation, which is much more in-depth, and we work very closely with participants in reviewing scopes of work and preparing their proposals for submission. So today is, again, it's a high overview, but please note, put your questions in the chat box. I'm happy to answer at the end, and also available by email. So the first area that we'll talk about is the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, and that is required by each contractor so that they can analyze what they need to assure that the price that is being paid by the government for the goods and services is fair and reasonable. So it's the legal part of the government ensuring that what they're paying for is fair and reasonable. Next, we'll talk about the technical evaluation model. And this one, I tend to have more slides and more information because I feel that this is very important for people to truly understand the 3 methods that are used. So the technical evaluation model is the assessment of the proposed effort to accomplish the contract requirements specified in the statement of work. It's what method the government is using to determine who is going to be awarded the project. Next, we'll talk about the technical evaluation team, and they're accountable for documenting measurable assessments of the contractor's proposed labor and material budgets. Who is actually reviewing the proposals? Who is making the determination, and how are they making the determination based on that evaluation model of who will win that award? And then the next one is the 4 key elements to a successful proposal. And many of you have very in-depth experience with this. So again, this area, I'm only going to highlight different areas of it just to kind of wrap it all together with what we've talked about up to that point. So that section will include, again, a brief overview of the evaluation rating standards, evaluation factors, and how the offer will meet the requirements, and then, of course, the evaluation findings. The last piece will be your technical design and approach, And that's to the extent in which your proposal demonstrates a clear understanding and solution to the statement of work. So before I go into the FAR, I hope many of you already understand or know what the SOW is. And if I refer to it during the slides, the SOW means the scope of work. And so when you're preparing your proposal, you're really taking a long, hard look at what is the SOW, what is the scope of work, what is the government looking for from you to be able to provide to them for a fee. The FAR is established for the codification and publication of uniform policies and procedures for acquisition by all executive agencies. Again, this is the legal requirements to ensure all agencies are following a uniform process and a uniform procedure for acquiring services or goods from contractors or companies out there. One of them that you may want to look at is the 48 CFR Chapter 1. At the very end of this PowerPoint, there is also a link to the FAR. And if you have nothing to do in the evening, it's some great nighttime reading. So I encourage you to take a look at it. A little bit about the FAR history. So the FAR is the primary regulation for use by all federal executive agencies in their acquisition of supplies and services with appropriated funds. So the appropriated funds, as many of you know, are allocated, especially during this time of year, because the fiscal budgets have been determined. And now those agencies are getting notification that fundings will be appropriated, and therefore they're putting their RFP or requests for proposals, their scopes of works out there, or requests for quotes are getting posted on federal sites such as FedBiz Ops or eBuy, if any of you are already registered with eBuy. The FAR laws became effective on April 1 of 1984, and it was issued within applicable laws under the joint authorities of the Administrator of General Services, the Secretary of Defense, and the Administrator for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, under the broad policy guidelines of the Administrator, Office of Federal Procurement Policy, and Office of Management and Budget. That is a big mouthful. But basically, again, it's just indicating that all of these agencies do need to follow the applicable FAR laws associated with any procurements of services and goods. The vision for the federal acquisition system is to deliver on a timely basis the best value product or service to the customer, while they're maintaining the public's trust and fulfilling public policy objectives. Participants in the acquisition process should work together as a team and should be empowered to make decisions within their area of responsibility. I've outlined several different FARs that you may want to go back and review after this training is over. Of course, there's many, many more. The first one that I've outlined is Part 9, and this one defines responsible contractors, qualification requirements, conflict of interest, and team arrangements. Part 12 covers commercial items. Part 13 through 16 defines most of the acquisition process. So to further understand what is happening prior to you bidding on the scope of work, this is a good area to get familiar with what is the legal process. Part 30 to 31 is the cost accounting, all of the requirements that you must do once you win that contract. Part 52 is provisions and clauses. And Part 53 is forms. So what's the government's objective? What is their purpose? Why are they doing this? Well, one, we know that they're putting these out because there is such a shortage on employees or workers within the federal government. And two, the government needs to hire contractors that have specialized experience that their employees may not have. So the overall objective that the government has is understanding the needs for their project, understanding what you can bring to that project, but being feasible, making sure that what they're putting out there in that scope of work is feasible to be done with the monies or the funds that have been allocated for that project. Is it reasonable? Are they asking for reasonable expectations or reasonable performance for what they're asking for? Are you, the company, competent to perform the work? And then is it enforceable? So they really want to make sure when they are making that selection, and again, we're working backwards today, they want to make sure you as the company understand what is your obligations? What have you committed to? What's in your proposal that says this is what you're going to do to meet their scope of work? Is it truly feasible? Have you presented a great idea and the government's looking at it thinking that's not even going to be possible with either the time period, the location, or the funds that are available? And is your firm truly competent to perform the work or provide the services that have been requested? And then can they enforce your contract with them? All right, so let's get past the legal stuff and let's get into the fun stuff. Or maybe I think it's only fun, but it's great being the evaluator. So again, for the rest of the presentation, I want you to step back and not think of yourself as being the person that is pursuing the scope of work and what needs to go into it from your perspective, you as the company, and let's step back and you be in the evaluator's role. So the typical evaluation process is, it is with the intent to minimize the complexity of A, the solicitation, B, the evaluation, and C, the source selection. They want to maintain a process designed to foster an impartial and a comprehensive evaluation of your proposal. So they truly want to not have any biased opinions, whether they've worked with your company or not. They need to remain very impartial. So they want to really truly take a look at what you've proposed in your documents. So the award decision is going to be based on evaluation factors. And there's also significant sub-factors that are tailored into the acquisition. And again, like I said earlier, this is a general overview. Every agency has a little bit different evaluation factors and process, but this is one direction or form that happens. So what would be some of those evaluation factors or sub-factors? One, representing the key areas of importance and having an emphasis to be considered in the source selection decision. And two, support meaningful comparison and discrimination between and among competing proposals. So again, think about the fact that they will have anywhere from 3 to 20 some proposals. And so they have to sit together as a team and go through and have a very standardized set of evaluation factors and process in reviewing proposals. So what are some of the evaluation factors? Here's a list, a general overview of some of the typical evaluation factors that either I've seen, or if you take a look at, if any of you have a scope of work in front of you or an RFP that you were going to bid on, what I always do and encourage others within our company is go to the last part of your RFP and take a look. What does it say in there that the government is going to evaluate this proposal on? What is going to determine the candidates that they want to select for this project? So there's always a set of evaluation factors. And one of the things that I want to point out too is your evaluation factors setup could be very different than your scope of work. And so I always suggest first lay out your proposals based on the scope of work. So if it says line item 1, employee qualifications, and these are the qualifications they want, make sure your proposal is laid out that way. However, after you lay out your proposal based on the scope of work, I then refer back to the evaluation factors. And I truly will lay out a checklist. I'll look at the evaluation factors, and evaluation factor 1 might be the management organization. How is the company managed, and how are they going to organize this project? And so that's when I step in as an evaluator and I go back to my proposal and I take a look. Have we clearly stated how we are going to manage and organize this project? Another factor that's usually in there is, what is the technical approach? What is our solution? And keep in mind that most government contract officer representatives that are on these projects, they want you to give them the solution. They know that this work needs to be done. They don't oftentimes know how to get the work done, but they want your company to be proposing to them that based on this scope of services that you're asking for, this is how we provide a solution to meeting those needs. What's the proposed schedule? So typically your RFP, your scope of work, will have a period of performance. And you probably hear that a lot. I know in our office, I'm always going around and asking, what's the pop? What's the pop? It's not the soda that I'm drinking, but it's the period of performance on the project. And so taking a look, if the period of performance clearly states it's 30 days, then make sure what you are proposing as your solution fits within a realistic 30-day schedule. If it does not, then you need to go back to your proposal and take a look. Either A, is there enough funding in there that you would need to ramp up what you're going to provide to make sure that it is performed during that 30 days? Or are you suggesting a solution that maybe is a little too much or too intense to meet the basic deliverables outlined in this project? Also, we do tend to see, because we bid on federal contracts all the time, we will see that the period of performance will say an estimated period of this date to this date. And typically in those RFPs, it will say an estimate. Because one, the kind of work that we are doing is very dependent on the contractors that are selected. And it's also on some of ours, because we do national parks, it's also dependent on the weather. So there's extenuating circumstances. So take a look at the proposed schedule. You will also typically see that it will state this is not funded yet, and they are trying to maybe just determine who's out there and available and interested in bidding on this once the funding is available. Next, they'll take a look at technical experience and expertise. And again, you're looking at this from the evaluator standpoint. You might have and feel you have the best company ever and the expertise to do the work, but is that truly being reflected in your proposal? If John Doe is your evaluator and John Doe does not know the name of your company and they are looking at the content in your proposal, have you clearly and succinctly outlined who you are as a company, your expertise, and again, are you able to meet that project deliverables and provide a solution? An example would be if you are a company that is that specializes in IT, and now you've decided, okay, we want to branch out, we want to look outside the box, we're getting a little bored with doing IT. Let's go after providing supplies for rebar for the state. Let's bid on that. In your proposal, do you have a solution on how you're going to get that supply? And it's very possible that you could have a great proposal, be able to show that you've got the solution in providing that supply that's needed, but do you have the expertise in purchasing that and getting the large quantities and meeting that project schedule? And just think about that. If you do, great. This is the opportunity to expand and look outside the box that you've been working within. But if you go back to your proposal and you're going through it as an evaluator and you feel that that area is weak, but you know you can do it, then it's really important that you go through several red line or draft versions and improve that area to sell them. Because after all, your proposal is also your sales tool. This is marketing your company to the government and getting them to take a look at you and to buy your goods or buy your service. Key personnel qualifications. Again, when you're looking at your scope of work, it typically will outline that they are looking for the person on this project to have possibly a degree, and the degree is in a certain area, or having so many years of experience, or having a specialized experience. We will see RFPs that are asking for people with high voltage experience. And so it's important when we are putting our employee in there to make sure if that is one of the key personnel qualifications, does our employee meet that? If our employee does not meet 3 of the 5 qualifications, we as a company are going to go back to the drawing board and we are going to locate that key person that can meet the qualifications, or for the most part meet the qualifications as outlined in the scope of work. Because one other thing, which I'm sure many of you already know, the government, whether they're buying a service or they're buying a supply, they do not want to hire a firm that they're going to have to train, or hire a firm that firm needs to get trained after they win the project, or that firm needs to make arrangements now with suppliers. They are expecting when you bid on this proposal, you already have the technical expertise. You already have the experience. If you don't have the experience, you have lined up the experience to either partner or be a sub on your proposal or your project. So they are truly expecting you to walk in day one and be ready to go. And I can say from experience on not only being an evaluator, but also doing debriefings if we don't win a project, and that's key. Many of you probably already do this, but one of my tidbits is if you do not win a proposal, you have the right to request a debrief, asking them what was the areas that you did not receive a high enough ranking to be selected for this project. And oftentimes it might be just a written document. They may, the CO or the COR that is on that, they may even do a phone call with you. And when they do a phone call, it's very structured and there's only certain things that they can answer. Oftentimes people want them to go into a lot more detail. Just know that they're restricted on what they can share. But I always find it so helpful that if you can get a debrief, it will just improve your next proposal. Sometimes it's, you may not win because maybe your price was too high, or maybe it was based on technical experience and you didn't quite have that area. But it's a great tool to help you increase your percentage of wins that you have when you're bidding on projects. Past performance. Depending on the evaluation that that agency is using, and again, that evaluation is going to be listed in the RFP, what that consideration is going to be based on. Is it going to be based on best value? Is it going to be based on lowest technically acceptable? Or is it going to be a combination of price and past performance? It will state in there how they're going to base their evaluation and selection on. So make sure you're very clear on what that is going to be as you go into writing your proposal. And especially when you're looking at the evaluation factors, it's key also at that point to take a look and to know clearly what evaluation method will they be using. And we'll get into that later through some of the other slides. So past performance, meaning, do you as a company have the past performance proof that this work or this service you've performed before? You may only have 1 or 2. They may ask for a minimum of 3. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue and submit a proposal. Because also, there may be other companies that are bidding that only have 2 past performances. And of course, you won't know that. So I always encourage you, if you've got the time and you have the experience, go after it. The next is they're going to take a look, again, going back up to that technical experience and expertise. Do you as a company have experience with similar types of work? Have you done this before? And that's a separate part from your past performance. Your past performance is truly going to be a snippet or a section or an attachment with an overview of that project, when you perform the services on that project, and what the period performance, the value of that project, what your role was with that project. Did you have any challenges on that project? And the challenges may be from a contractor standpoint, or it might be challenges that you had. And if you have those challenges, how did you overcome them? Please, please always make sure if you are listing that, it's great for the contractor or the agency to see that, but also make sure that you're listing in there, how did you overcome that challenge? Because they realize with every kind of service or product that's out there, there's going to be some kind of a challenge. And be upfront and tell them, because they also will take into consideration, how did you overcome that? Or did you overcome that? Small business subcontracting plans, meaning that if you are pursuing a project, you don't have all of the technical expertise or experience, but you've already made arrangements with another company that's going to subcontract part of the deliverables, then they're going to want to know, how is that going to work? Who is going to be the line of authority? What part of this project will your subcontractors be performing? And what we try to do, if there's room allowed on the proposal, we will also give some snippets of some of the projects that our subcontractors have been on. And again, it can be a small table and just listing the type of contract they've had, their role on the contract, their value, and the period of performance. Again, it gives validity, or it gives substance to who you are partnering with or who you're bringing in on this project. Because again, as an evaluator, I want to know that if I award this contract to you, that not only you are providing great performance, but anybody that you're going to be working with on this project, they're going to also provide great or excellent performance on this project. Because at the end of the day, me as an evaluator, I'm taking that risk and saying, yes, I've gone through the process. Yes, company A is the perfect company, or they are the ones that will do meet or exceed deliverables on this project. We are going to hire them. And then we expect that to happen. And then price. And again, depending on the evaluation that's going to be used for this particular RFP, price may or may not be taken into consideration. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through the evaluation types. Again, if you've got questions as we go, put them in the chat box, because some of this I'm throwing out a lot of information, and usually I go into a lot more detail, and so some of it I'm kind of brushing over. So the technical evaluation model, what is that? What have I been talking about? There's 3 standard or typical models that are used. And the first one is best value, or BV. It'll be an analysis between what is your technical capabilities and what is your price. So what that's saying is that the proposals are not going to be just determined based on A, technical capabilities, or B, the lowest price or the best value on the price. It is a combination of the 2. And later on, I'll talk a little bit more about what does that combination look like. But just know one of the evaluation models is best value. And then you'll also see LPTA, because of course, agencies like to use acronyms. We all do, and we all tend to get in those habits. So I feel sorry for the new people because they almost need to have their own dictionary of acronyms. Which LPTA is lowest price technically acceptable. Proposal rates that are technically acceptable will get a pass-fail before consideration of the lowest price. So again, read that. Proposal rates that are technically acceptable will get a pass-fail before consideration of lowest price. So they truly want to make sure that you have the technical capabilities to perform the work as outlined in the scope of work. And if you pass that, then the next consideration is, do you have the lowest price? And then there will be a chart that they will use to grade that or determine that. And then the third one, PPTO, price and past performance. So they will take a look. What is the trade-off? They will trade off the analysis before low price consideration. So that means, again, what is your approach? Do you have the performance and do you have the technical capabilities to be able to be successful on this project, to either meet or exceed the deliverables as outlined in the scope of work? And if you have scored high on that, and if there's multiple individuals that are very comparable in that area, then the next evaluation factor is low price consideration. So it can be very possible that you have a stellar proposal, you know you can perform the work, you've got all of the technical capabilities, excellent, either individual or the supplies can be offered to meet their needs, but you may not have the lowest price and you may not be selected for that project. So now let's get in a little bit more to what is the definitions on best value. So best value will have 4 sections. It will have the exceptional, and on their documents it will be blue. And the definition of an exceptional best value, and again, we're only looking at the evaluation factor of best value. And remember, best value is a combination between your technical capabilities and expertise and your price. So it's not one or the other, it's a combination of both. So if you get an exceptional rating, it means that you have clearly demonstrated the ability to perform the work as defined in the performance work statement, the PWS. And your proposal contains extensive detail, and you demonstrated a thorough understanding of the requirements. Your proposal exceeds the requirements in several areas, adding significant value to the government. Again, that's a big mouthful, but really that's, I think, today's presentation, again, as an evaluator for your own proposal, putting a team together, if you have that ability, going back and giving yourself this rating. Have you clearly demonstrated that you can do the work? Do you clearly demonstrated that you understand what the government needs? Have you clearly shown them how that's going to be successful in meeting or exceeding what you feel is the government's requirements? But what is that adding significant value? And those of you that have worked closely with contract officers or contract officer representatives may have heard that, and it's becoming a new, well, not a new term, but it's a term that's being used quite often throughout multiple agencies over probably the last 3 to 5 years. They not only want you in your proposal to say, yes, I can do all of this, yes, I can meet all of the outlined scope of work, I can do all of that, but they also want to see what else? What else can you give to me as a government agency that is beyond the expectations of this scope of work? And when I say that, it doesn't necessarily mean more money, but what else can you provide to them that would be a benefit? An example might be if you're providing a service, perhaps the government does not have a good cloud-based location for managing the project. Maybe they have multiple stakeholders that are involved in a project. Everybody's trying to jump in on a Zoom meeting and get caught up. Where are we at with the project? Or maybe they don't even have an agenda, or maybe they don't know what were the notes from the last meeting, or what does the schedule look like? And maybe as a company, you already have a project management software that you use, and perhaps you are offering that to this project, that, hey, government agency, you do not need to purchase or give us access to a project-based, cloud-based software to manage this, but us as company A, we're going to bring that to you. We are going to provide that at no cost, because we've already, as a company, we use it extensively, and now we're going to bring all of the stakeholders in to be able to use this and manage this project on time and within the budget, and have clear communication amongst all stakeholders. And as many of you are experiencing over the last 8 months now with COVID, we have a lot of Zoom meetings. We have lots of online phone calls, conference calls. Everything, whether we wanted to go electronic or virtual, has become electronic and virtual. But how do we manage that on a project? So bringing that value add to this project. And I truly want you to think about that a lot in moving forward with any of your proposals, whether it's best value or not. What is that extra value add that you can give that would be above and beyond what your competition might be providing? The next level of best value definition is acceptable, which is a green. The offer has demonstrated its ability to perform the minimum requirements of the project work statement. It contains sufficient detail, demonstrates a satisfactory understanding of the requirement. However, areas where the proposal may exceed the minimum requirements are considered to be of minor or no value to the government. There are no deficiencies, however. So oftentimes you will see this as one of the very common levels that multiple proposals will be at, and then they will have to take into consideration, go back and do a rating, and they may even have different evaluators look at the same proposal so they can see if they can get one company up to an exceptional level and out of that acceptable level. But again, when I just talked a lot about what is the value add, this is what sets you apart. This is where you are exceeding the minimum requirements. And again, it doesn't have to mean a cost to you as a company. The next level on a best value is marginal or yellow. So the offer has not clearly demonstrated its ability to meet the minimum requirements of the project work statement, PWS, and has provided a vague understanding of the requirements. In addition, the proposal has several areas of weaknesses. And of course, the last one is unacceptable or red. The offer has not demonstrated its ability to meet the minimum requirements of the project work statement and has deficiencies, omissions, or numerous significant weaknesses. So this is a sample evaluation sheet that may be used when it is a best value evaluation. So there will be a sheet that is attached to each proposal. This is set up as offer, their technical score, past performance score, and their price. And so offer or proposal A, in this example, has received a technical score of blue. They have received a past performance of green, and their price is $200,000. Now the previous screens, a blue was exceptional, past performance is acceptable, and the price is $200,000. So now they have to do a comparison. So they're going to add to a master sheet offer evaluators results for offer B. Offer B gets a green technical score, a green past performance, and their price is $175. Offer C has a blue, and again, blue is exceptional, and they have a blue for past performance, exceptional, and their price is $215. And offer D has a green for technical, which is acceptable, but they have yellow, which is marginal for past performance, and their price is $150. So in this, as an evaluator, D is automatically going to get eliminated because, again, we're looking at what is the best value. Where are we going to get a nice complement between technical, past, and your price? Doesn't always mean, and even in this scenario, that the lowest price is the most acceptable or will be selected, because again, past performance was a yellow, which yellow is marginal. The second type of evaluation can be lowest price technically acceptable. Lowest price technically acceptable. So acceptable for this category is a green. This means the proposal meets all the requirements identified in the solicitation. Only those proposals determined to be acceptable, either initially or as a result of discussions, will be considered for an award. And once deemed acceptable, all proposals are considered equal. The next factor that they have is unacceptable. So just know, lowest price technically acceptable has either a pass or a fail on acceptable or unacceptable. So the unacceptable is red. And red is defined as it fails to meet one or more requirements as identified in the PWS, and major revisions would be required to make the proposal acceptable. Proposals with an unacceptable rating will not be considered for the award. So in looking at this screen, all of them that meet the red will automatically be discarded to the side. They will be rated as red, not being considered. Evaluator will come back to the proposals that are of a green status. And then the next part that they will do with those that have passed at a green level, they will go to an evaluation criteria such as this. And again, when I said at the beginning, look at your last pages where it says, this is what the CO or the COR are going to use for evaluation criteria. This is critical if this is how they're going to determine who is awarded this project. And please make sure that in your proposal you've identified and answered all of the evaluation criteria listed. So one of the factors, and I don't have examples of factors because every factor for the type of service or the product that needs to be obtained is going to be different. But typically you'll have evaluation criteria factor 1, and they will list it as a 0 to a 50, that this is what the percentage is going to be to meet evaluation factor 1 in this proposal. There could be several sub-factors, A and B. So for example, there could be, let's say that this, and I'm going to use projects that we do here at Project Solutions. Let's say that the project is in a very remote location in a national park, and they want to make sure that the person that's going to be in a remote location that may have no connectivity, may not have access to the internet, may not have access to a phone, is that person qualified and have enough experience to be able to perform the work with little or no supervision? So that may be evaluation factor 1. Or sub-factor may be they want to make sure that this same scenario, that this person has an engineering degree, and they will give that a certain weight. Sub-factor B may be number of years of experience, or it might be type of experience, or it might be specialized experience, could be certificates, and that will have a percentage or a weight. Evaluation criteria factor 2, and again, we're looking at the entire proposal that you've submitted and you as a company and what you have outlined as meeting that scope of work. How are you going to solve the solution within this scope of work? So evaluation criteria factor 2 may be past performance. Do you have the technical and past performance to be able to perform this job? And that may have a 25% factor or evaluation weight. So again, I can't say this enough. Make sure you clearly understand what your evaluation factors are before you submit that proposal. And then sometimes they will have an evaluation in there of price. And so that may or may not be weighted. And so I did not put a percentage in here because again, it's all dependent on that RFP. The third area of evaluation is called the price and past performance. And so all of these areas are going to be taken into consideration when the evaluation is being performed. So the first one is going to be your technical capability. Again, it goes back to, as I said earlier, have you provided the solution to what the government or what that contractor or that agency or that firm needs? Have you clearly stated how you are technically capable of performing the work or providing the service or the supplies that are needed? It's also going to take into consideration what is your price. And then your past performance, the proof that you have provided this supply or service before. Have you clearly demonstrated or documented that information? So the first factor, there's multiple factors that are involved in this one, and this one is a little bit more extensive, and I would suggest after you're done with this training today, if you get ones that are price and past performance, kind of go back through and review the slides. It's a little bit more cumbersome to just watch this for a couple of minutes. And again, after this is over, please reach out to Daniel and I'm happy to answer questions. So factor 1, technical capability, because as you recall, that's one of the 3 areas that you will be rated on. or evaluated on. So it's going to be on excellence, management, quality, key personnel, understanding, and feasibility. And if you recall on one of the first couple of slides, the government does have an objective when they are sending these out and wanting to hire firms. They truly are looking at these areas of focus, and again, being able to hire the right contractor to perform the services or provide the supplies that they need. So they want to make sure that you've got a good management or organization that can handle this, that you are providing quality. Many of you probably already have PPQs, past performance quality standards, that are submitted after your project is done. Make sure, if you are not contacting your contract officers or contract officer representatives when your project is done and they are not, well, let me back up. What we always do when a contract has ended, when it is completely done, contract is closed, we then will reach back out to the contract officer and we will request that they submit a performance questionnaire on us as a company. Because as you bid on more and more projects, we are seeing more and more agencies are requiring so many what we call PPQs. They want to see that the agencies are also validating what you are saying in your proposal. We can say we are the best company and these are our project challenges, this is how we overcome it, but they're wanting to get that confirmation. So if you're not doing that, I really strongly suggest that you have that as part of your closeout process, that within a certain period of time you are contacting the CO, the contract officer, or your representative, if you've built a great relationship with them, and just asking them, hey, can you please go out and fill this out? Oftentimes they may just put an acceptable rating all the way down on the evaluation, because sometimes your contract officer does not know your firm specifically and did not work closely with your firm. So we always try to get the contract officer representative involved in that process, because that COR then hopefully is feeding back performance information to the CO that's going to fill that out. So on this one, there's going to be 4 levels of definition the evaluator is going to use on their sheet. So the top level is acceptable or green. And the definition is the proposal meets all the requirements identified in the solicitation. Only those proposals determined acceptable, either initially or as a result of discussions, will be considered for an award. Once deemed acceptable, all proposals are considered equal. And they literally will have that definition on their evaluation sheet. And so it's their guide that they will take a look at as they are checking off. Do you meet this? Do you meet this level? Or do you meet this level? The next level is yellow. Reasonably acceptable of being made acceptable. Now, how confusing is that? So that definition is the offer's proposal does not meet all of the requirements in the PWS performance work statement based on the initial offer. However, there is reason to believe that through minor revisions, an acceptable proposal could result. For award without discussions, these proposals are considered unacceptable. So what that basically is saying is, let's say the agency has received proposals and there was an amendment that was submitted on the RFP. And this offer did not sign the amendment. The offer acknowledged it, maybe in their executive summary or initial letter of request to consider the proposal, but perhaps they didn't sign the amendments and attach it to that proposal. And of course, not signing those can throw your proposal out. So the CEOs and the CORs, along with the evaluators, could have a discussion and say, okay, we see that this contractor could be a great fit for what we need, but they are missing this part. Are we open to contacting them and asking them to provide those amendments so they can be considered part of the acceptable or equal proposal consideration? So that's basically what that means. That will happen sometimes. Sometimes they won't, because those evaluators, they may have gotten 8, 10, 15 really good proposals, and if this one missed something, they might have been great, but they are truly not acceptable at this point, and they've got too many to evaluate, so there may not be a discussion. That proposal could be thrown out. Red is unacceptable. So the red means that it fails to meet one or more requirements identified in the performance work statement, and major revisions would be required to make the proposal acceptable. Proposals with an unacceptable rating will not be considered for award. And yellow, reasonably okay, yes, that it might be made acceptable. The offer's proposal does not meet all the requirements in the performance work statement based on the initial offer. However, there's reason to believe that through minor revisions, an acceptable proposal could result. For award without discussions, these proposals are considered unacceptable. So you can see as an evaluator, I'm going to scroll back once. As an evaluator, if you've got 8 to 10 proposals, you're going to first have your team evaluators come together, make a determination. At what color level are they? Are they acceptable, unacceptable? Is there areas of possibility by contacting them that they could become acceptable? So they're truly going to weed out the proposals, narrow it down to this group. Once they're in that group of green, then they're going to go back. They're going to typically give those proposals to different people. They're going to mix it up. They would not have the same evaluator going back and reviewing the same ones that they just looked at. Factor 2, and remember there's 3 factors in this category. So the total price, including all option and option years. So there are times that an RFP or an RFQ is for multiple years, or it might be multiple phases. So they will need to take into consideration all of that information when doing the price evaluation. So that could be, and its reasonableness if stated in the RFQ or the RFP. And what that is defined as labor mix assessment, having the right skills or the right knowledge to perform, again, the work that's outlined in the scope of work, and what meets the evaluator's qualifications or requirements. Next is our quantity of labor hours, or is the quantity of supply that you're going to be providing, is that comparable to the price that you are requesting? And then next, against the IGCE, the basis of the estimate. And the fourth one is the price information that's learned during market research. So sometimes what happens is contract officer representatives or other staff within the agency, they did some market research before submitting the RFP for contractors or individuals to bid on. They have kind of an idea of what the market would, or what it would cost based on the market. And so they have a general idea. And in that scenario, let's just say that you come in, you've got exceptional employees that you want to put on this, and you've determined on the scope of work the period of performance is 6 months. And they've said that the number of hours is 180 hours. You take a look at, okay, my employee is a stellar employee, great fit. My employee, though, I have to, after I pay the salary and do my markup, I'm just throwing out numbers here. I'm going to mark it at $60 an hour for 180 hours, and then any ODCs or any other costs that you need to put in there. You put all of that together, and let's just say your final price or your final bid is $80,000. No, let's do it the other way around because that's not even realistic. Let's say your final bid is $250,000, and the agency had received funding for $180,000. And based on their market research, that's pretty comparable to what they were looking at. So they will take into consideration, you won't get eliminated if you come in much higher, but they also want it to be fair market value. You know, they don't want you coming in and making, you know, twice what the market says is realistic, because we all know this is only one of many projects or many supplies that they need. So they're, of course, trying to make it the most efficient use of those funds. And again, going back to those original slides, the government allocates these funds, but they want to get the best use for those limited dollars. I hope that kind of makes sense for you. So this is an example of what the evaluation sheet will look like that's on the price or the cost portion. And on some of the proposals that you submit, they will request that your cost is separate from your technical. And this is why. Because you will have evaluators that are doing the cost portion, but not looking at your technical at all, and vice versa. And they will sometimes, depending on how many proposals they are evaluating and trying to narrow down, then they may switch it up, and somebody that did the price may then switch and do the technical. Oftentimes that doesn't happen because people that are evaluating and doing price, they have an accounting background of some sort, so they can truly do the math and take a look at what their anticipated market value is versus what this price that's coming in on the proposals. So in this example, offer D has a green, and green is acceptable, and their price is $150,000. Offer B has a green, again, that's acceptable, $175,000. Offer A has a blue, and the blue is should have been yellow, sorry about that. A has a yellow, and that is reasonably acceptable, but being made unacceptable. And C should also be listed there as yellow. My apologies if that's confusing anybody. And they have a quote of $215,000. And it's important you kind of take a look at this, because then coming up on the next screens, I'm going to put that together after we get through the past performance. It will make a little bit more sense. And that's where I said in the beginning, if you get some of these, it's easier to just print these off and then go back and review. Factor 3, and again, this is the third factor in this category of evaluation. So it will have a listing of very relevant, relevant, somewhat relevant, and not relevant. And the definition for very relevant, present or past performance effort involved essentially is the same magnitude of effort and complexities that is in this solicitation. Relevant, their past performance effort or present or past performance efforts involved in this is it meets the minimums. Somewhat relevant is maybe your past performance isn't quite the same, but it looks like you could have at least some of the technical capabilities and experience to meet the scope of work. And not relevant is your past performance is completely outside of the skills or the scope that is needed. And that would kind of go back to maybe you're an IT company and now you're going to provide rebar for a state project. and your past performance does not match the needs of this particular scope. So that's relevancy. The other part of past or performance is the rating. So on that relevancy, are they very confident? So based on your performance record, the government has high confidence that you can perform the work as outlined. Or are they at a confident level? Yes, the government has determined that you can successfully perform, and really think about this as the minimum requirements on the scope of work. Unknown confidence, no performance record is identified. And this can also happen if you have not clearly stated in your proposal how you perform this work. So again, go back as an evaluator and take a look at it. Less confident basically does not have the rating or the performance needed to successfully complete this work. So then the next one, and I said this is where they will then take a master sheet and they will rate each offer. What was their technical score? What was their price? What was their relevant to the project? And where is their past performance, that rating that we just talked about. So we'll take into those four areas to make their determination on that proposal. So the third one takes a lot more work, but we are seeing a little bit of each of the different types of evaluation processes. The technical evaluation team. So on this part, we'll just kind of do a brief overview, but basically the evaluation team is going to get a memo, and it's going to be outlined, and it's going to basically state what is the solicitation number and title, a brief description of the services that are being solicited or the supplies, who is the technical evaluation team, who is involved, what members of the agency or who has been selected to be on the eval team. A description of the review process, so what evaluation methods will they use, a brief narrative of the strengths and weaknesses of each proposal. Again, this is coming from the agency and what they're expecting, the ranked scoring according to the evaluation criteria, and recommendations of action. Measuring proposals, so there will be the cost review phase. Next is measure the vendor's responsiveness to provide qualified costs as described in the request for proposal, cost proposal section. Next, the agencies must first review the proposal for responsiveness, then apply the formula as described in one of those methods that we previously talked about. And the next section is they are then responsible, that agency, to transmit the costs, or not transmit the costs, transmit the results from the cost evaluation phase to purchasing through a final evaluation memo, and then recommendation of the award to the highest ranked technically qualified vendors. So those are each of the steps that an evaluator will go through. So up to this point, we've talked about the methods, we've talked about what you need in your proposal, we've talked about always going to the end of your RFP, reviewing that, and basically evaluate the proposal that you are submitting. Have you met or exceeded all of the evaluation factors? And so the next part is a little bit more on just proposals, which I'm sure many of you already know these areas, and this is just more of suggestions or tips or recommendations on my part. But the next part is really your proposal. What are the key elements to a successful proposal? And my disclaimer is there is no guarantee that you leave this training today and you're going to go out and win your next proposal. But hopefully, I guess throughout today, you just have a little bit different perspective of what to look for in yours before you submit it and win that next big bid. So brainstorming. What is your win strategy? How are you going to approach the scope of work? How are you going to prove in your proposal that you are the best candidate or the best firm to get this award? How are you going to meet the needs of the RFP? Remember, they want a solution. They don't always know. They get assigned to a project and they're given this money. Now they've got to figure out, how do they meet the requirements? How do they meet the needs of that project? So how are you going to provide that solution? What are you going to do? Your proposal isn't always about you as the company and what all the great things and wonderful things you've done, which you should be proud of, but the government wants you to tell them, based on my experience, this is how I propose that we are going to get this project done or those supplies provided in this amount of time. And then interview the technical people to clearly state their solution. So if it's a team of you that will be meeting the deliverables on this project, who is that team? What is their thoughts? How do they feel that you are going to provide the solution? Brainstorming is always great. I love it. You know, I think you always, if you can get other feedback or input, people come up with other ideas that maybe your technical writer, your CEO haven't thought of. Why not take a few minutes and have the team come up with ideas? And this is your competitive advantage. I'm sure many of you already have a general idea of who your competition is out there. And this is just some tidbits to think about when you're comparing yourself to others that might be bidding. What is your competitive advantage? Why should they do business with you over your competitor? And it needs to be quantifiable. Please, please, if anything that you take away today, it needs to be quantifiable, not just arbitrary that we are so reliable, we're so loyal, and we always meet the deadlines on time. These are truly, truly cliches that are read over and over in a proposal. Put quantifiable numbers in there. I have successfully completed the last 3 projects that are similar to this scope ahead of schedule or within budget, or we exceeded the government's expectations by 80%. We completed this 30 days ahead of time. Please use quantifiable numbers if you can. And you know, the thing is, these I put in here because these are redundant. They're often in many, many proposals, and it's natural for us to all feel that we do provide the best customer service or the best quality. And it's natural for us to write that in there. But again, when you're putting this proposal together, think about how are you better than your competition. Source selection ratings. This is also important. And this is what I talked about earlier, making sure that you are reaching out to your contract officers, your contract officer representative, and asking them at the end of a project, please go out there and provide a past performance on us as a company. And these are the standards that they will use. And I'm sure many of you have seen them before, but it'll have a series of questions, and they're typically the same questions on every project. And then they'll have exceptional, acceptable, marginal, or unacceptable. And oftentimes, contract officers, again, don't necessarily know the contractor. They may take a look if they came in ahead of schedule or below budget, or if there's any challenges. And if they do, that's great, because oftentimes those are the ones we really want, because they're taking the time and they understand how important this is as a company. But this is oftentimes their rating scale that they will use. Your technical design and approach, and many of you, I'm sure, have already considered all of this when you're writing your proposals. And this is just kind of a tips again, or suggestions, and why some proposals will fail. Maybe one, they haven't clearly stated why they have the competitive advantage, why you should be selected over your competition. Maybe you didn't meet the evaluation factors that were outlined. Standard of writing, I've seen this and it's sad, but please, please make sure grammar is checked. Make sure you don't have misspelled words. Make sure that you are not referencing another project in this proposal or agency. I've seen that where you might be bidding to Department of Interior, but you have Army Corps listed on there. So please make sure that you've double, triple checked your writing. Rush to write failure is part of that as well. Again, referencing wrong agencies, referencing wrong periods of performance or types of work. Maybe your persuasion, you failed at that. Maybe you didn't convince them enough of how you're going to provide them with the solution, the answer. And if you don't pass or you don't get selected, have a debrief with your team. Go back, and if you don't get the evaluation or the debrief from the agency, go back and take a look at it as a team. Pull it apart. See if there's something you can identify that has not met what you feel is the reason why you did not get accepted for the project. And sometimes I've seen it where it's compliance failure. Not showing proof that you are going to have that $5 million construction liability insurance, and it says you need to have that documentation provided with your proposal, or that maybe you haven't signed the appropriate FAR documents to be able to submit your proposal. Again, I've talked about this over and over. Read your RFP backwards, understand the evaluation criteria, then go backwards and start writing. Think beyond compliance. Consider why past proposals may have failed. In this section, because we're kind of running out of time, as you can see, I tend to talk a lot. And if you ever come to my in-person ones, you'll see I talk and walk and use my hands a lot too. So I feel that interaction is great. So you're lucky because my arms have been all over the place today. I get kind of excited about this. So persuasion writing, everybody is very familiar with persuasion writing and making sure that you're doing something through reasoning or argument. Types of persuasion or appeals, taking this into consideration. Is it based on reputation? Is it based on reason? Or is it based on emotion? And what are your deliverables going to be? Tell your audience what they want to hear, not what you want to tell them. Again, what's your solution? How are you going to meet the needs on that contract? They want to know you have the experience. Now tell them how you're going to solve it. Your proposal truly is a sales tool. Even though you have all of these technical parts of it, it really is your opportunity to sell you or your company to that evaluator. So sell your benefits, not just your features. Please think through that. Sell your benefits, not just your features. And never, ever make an unsupported claim, such as I can provide that rebar, I can have 500 ton delivered there tomorrow, when you don't even know who your supplier is going to be, how you're going to get transportation, and what the costs are going to be. So never ever, because what that will do is if you get thrown out on that contract, it will have a mark on you and will really make it difficult for you to propose, submit proposals and get considered down the road. The other thing is technical writing does not need to be confusing or wordy. You don't need lots of fluff. You don't need lots of high-level grammar and words. People that are doing the evaluation, they want it very straightforward and very clear. They don't want to have to dig through a lot of words or a lot of narrative to find the answers they're looking for. Because again, Some proposals, as you know, some proposals can be 50 pages or 100 pages. And if you have an evaluator that has to even do one in its entirety, you're going to start to lose them. So please try to make it clear and concise. This is just a final edits checklist that we try to go through. Does your proposal bring evaluators to the conclusion you want them to reach? Does your proposal read easily, clearly, and what? Free of errors. Do you demonstrate your understanding of the RFP requirements? Does it have any qualities that apply equally well to your competitors' qualities? Is it about the customer? Is it about them? Is it about you providing the solution? Pricing. Pricing, this is again just a few tips. Think like your customer. Does your pricing make sense? Consider the effort, support, and risk. Indirects, are they too high to be competitive? But make sure that your bid isn't too low, that you don't have a margin there to make a profit. Again, think like your customers. What would you want for your solution if you were the customer? Would you select your company if you read your proposal? Write to your customer's needs. Is there any information that the customer doesn't have but should know about and you can offer? And price, remember, features, benefits, so what? Answer that. Answer that before you submit your proposal. All right. I hope everybody at least walked away with a few pieces of new information or some ideas on how to move forward, go back, evaluate some of the proposals that maybe you didn't win, and see from an evaluator standpoint, is there areas that you could improve upon? And thank you so much for joining me today and participating in this event. So I'm going to open it up to Daniel and see if we have any questions that I can answer.
Thank you, Kathleen, and thank you for the wonderful presentation. We do have one question so far from Chuck. He is asking, what is the importance of a Dun & Bradstreet report, and how would you recommend companies improve their standing with regards to a Dun & Bradstreet report?
That would be an excellent question for our CEO. She handles all of that part of it. But it is an excellent question, but I don't feel that I would be able to give you concrete information. So what I would like to do, if you're okay with this, Daniel, is I'd like to have Sandy Burns respond back in writing to you that you could share with the participants.
Okay, that would be wonderful, yeah. Don't have any other questions so far besides asking for my email, which I will just put my email in the chat to everybody so that you have that. Okay, we have a question from Leslie asking, should writings be technical or be in layman's terms?
That is something that we go back and forth continually on, and I actually has to be a combination of both, because thinking from the, and again today is mainly from the evaluator's perspective, we like it to be in layman's terms because we don't know what their expertise is going to be. And so we want to make it very clear, but we want to show them what the solution is. Sometimes evaluators will truly only get an overview of what the scope of work is, what the evaluation criteria is, and it is their evaluation is going to be very technical in nature. So with that said, however, you could have an evaluator that is very familiar with the work that's being done, and then this may be just an additional task order on a much larger project, or they could have been doing these projects for many, many years. So they could be very, very familiar. So unfortunately, you have to have both. You have to have the technical to be able to provide that solution, but to put it in a manner that anybody of any knowledge or experience would be able to clearly understand what your solution is and how you're the best fit.
Okay, we have another question here asking if you have any templates for like a winning proposal for a specific project, and if you'd be willing to share that.
We have what we call proposal source docs, and I recommend everybody set that up. As you start bidding regularly, and like I said, we bid during busy times, we're bidding 5 to 7 proposals per week. And what we have found is we have set templates that we have started adapting by agency. It doesn't always work. With the industry we're in, it works because, for example, the National Park Service has very clear and concise expectations for their projects, and their evaluation factors tend to be very similar from one to the next. So we will have a template that we use. We will have supporting documents already formatted that we will use for certain types of projects that, for example, the National Park Service will come out with. So if the National Park Service comes out with a project in a very remote location, for example, we just finished up a project in the south rim of the Grand Canyon, very remote, required our employee to hike in 3 miles at the beginning of the week and hike out at the end of the week. Supplies were airlifted in. But with that kind of a project, we know a heavy evaluation factor is going to be that that individual is experienced enough to be able to work independently and to be able to be there as a representative. And we know as a company, and the agency knows, that that individual is not going to make calls or recommendations or decisions without the input from the agency. So those type of things, we built folders that we are developing our own templates, and I suggest that. We do have some templates, and I'm happy to share those with you, Daniel. One of the charts that we use very regularly is something that we at PSI developed, and it's called Bid No Bid, and it's basically a flow chart. So it's asking you as a company, do I meet this qualifications? If yes, then I go to this next step. If no, of course, then my process is done. But if I go to the next step, then do I have the employee, or do I have the ability to bid on this and have a high enough margin to make a profit? So I can provide that. We also have, trying to think what, well, and then we've been adapting, because what we're also finding, and we've got some other templates that I could send over to you, Daniel, as some generic ones, but truly every agency is a little bit different on what they're doing or what they're wanting. And what I've started noticing, even in the past probably 18 months, they are limiting their proposals, and it's a very standard set amount. For example, one of the agencies has a 10-page limit, period, end of story, and attachments are getting thrown out or not considered. So really start watching that. I tend to be a person that writes a lot. I talk a lot, I write a lot. And so one of the things I've had to learn over the years is really truly depend on our technical writers to be able to scale back the information I might be providing to make it very clear and concise. So long answer shortened, I can provide some templates, but I highly recommend, if there's particular agencies or projects that you continue to go after again and again and again, start to make those formats ahead of time in preparation of an RFP coming out. Meatball charts is another thing that we use a lot, but we're a project management company. So meatball charts is a very standard thing that we use in our proposals. Meatball charts, for those that aren't familiar with it, is basically a table that shows our employees, their skills, and how those skills apply to this proposal. so that we're not listing 15 or 20 employees that can do the work, and each of their resumes or CV, we're listing them in a table and saying employee A has inspections experience or commissioning or project management. So we do meatball charts as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Kathleen. And yeah, if you have any additional resources that you could send me, that would be awesome. And then for any of our attendees, if you have an interest in those resources, just email me and I can send those to you. We also have a no bid chart or a bid no bid chart as well. So yeah, so we can send those out if anybody's interested. We do have some more questions here. The next question is the majority of the evaluation team often technical?
It is, yes. But you know, I can't speak for all agencies and all evaluators. I can only speak for the agencies that I've been an evaluator on. And most of the time, because the work that is being bid on is very technical, so they're going to have technical experts doing the evaluation.
Okay. This next one I think would be a little bit quicker. How many staff do you have dedicated to answering 6 proposals a week?
Well, it varies from week to week, because what we like to do, earlier I talked about the team. We rely heavily on a team coming together and doing the brainstorming, and then we've got a dedicated technical writer. But oftentimes myself and the CEO, you will see us jumping in and writing proposals or helping with the editing or pulling, doing the brainstorming and pulling the solution or the direction together for the proposal. So at our company, that truly starts with the owner of the company, the management team, which includes our CFO and myself, will come together, will determine, is this a project that we should pursue? Do we have the resources? Do we have the qualifications, kind of the no bid or bid process? We will then try to put together our solution. We then bring the technical writer in to get her feedback on what her thoughts are on what is missing from the evaluation factors. And then we try to bring in any engineers or construction managers that are in our company to have them give us also their thoughts on what the solution is. So we really do approach this as a team effort. Even if we don't win the proposal, we try to pull in even more members of our company and have them give us an outside perspective. So we may pull in our bookkeeper. We may pull in our administrative assistant and say, okay, here is what the scope is. Here's what our proposal. What do you see or what do you feel is maybe missing, especially if we didn't get a debrief? So I really highly recommend that. It's great to continue to develop your skills and your team on those proposals.
Awesome, thank you. And then we have one final question if you have time for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. The question is, how can a company determine if its indirect rate is too high to be competitive?
It really comes back to your CFO and your CEO making those determinations, because they oftentimes will have access to other information that if you're registered with eBuy, you can go in there and you can get information on other competition and what their approved rates are, and so they will use resources like that, or they may have other opportunities that they can go in at a higher level to get that kind of information. Because we have division of duties, I do not go in and access any of that information. But again, that's a great question, and I would really like to have Sandy weigh in on that and give any additional thoughts that she may have.
Perfect. I will take a note of the couple questions that you wanted to ask Sandy, and see if we can get those answers, and then send out any information to the clients or the attendees that want that.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry. But that's all we have for today on questions. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for presenting today and joining us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, everybody. And again, good luck. And I hope you took away a few things from today's presentation. Have a great weekend. And the time change. We get extra time this weekend. That's even the best.
Hooray. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Bye.